Spanish, and I'm like, yeah, I grew up in Cuba. And they're like, cool, and I was like, yeah, that's when I was in 3rd grade, and then they'll like, their one trigger of like Spanish is like this, or whatever.
That sucks.
That's which is like, I don't know, fair, I guess. I look like, I don't know that I'm white passing, but I'm also not very like native Latin American looking. So I guess people like split Spanish like heritage into like European looking, I guess, kind of, or like native Latin American looking. And I like fit that, and Despacito fits that.
Having to, like, am I too white for like speaking a certain way or studying the things that I study? Does that make me like white? And like, am I too kind of like not white not normal by choosing not to drink sometimes, or choosing to I don't know, pray and like at a mosque or something like that? Like, there are always certain tally marks that people can put up against me on a day-to-day to like separate me from what is the norm.
It started to make me wonder whether or not I was white enough. Even I was like simultaneously white and Indian enough. So I think my sister focused most on trying to avoid being Indian altogether. I have struggled with trying to integrate both into my life. I think that different people react in very different ways, and I know that there are a lot of people with whom I grew up actually who have tried to embrace the Indian side of their upbringing and of their identity so much that they can't even, they have a very hard time identifying with Americans who aren't Indian.
Why do the people who I see on TV, or even the people who I read in like the paper or online, why do they all look the same, or why do a lot of them look the same? And it's like, it makes sense, because it's like those are the groups who have been able to dominate those conversations, their own narratives through mediums that they, like, not like physical mediums, like artistic mediums that they invented. Like, people who could afford to sell products invented advertising to sell it. Probably white people who invented the advertising. Like, people who ran the film industry for years, who've run the film industry for years, it's like white people telling stories about themselves. It's like an unearned privilege in the sense that these are the people who have earned the right to tell those stories didn't necessarily earn them, but they kind of built a foundation for the feedback loop to continue. Like, once one group has their unearned privilege and builds a foundation for the next generation, those who theoretically earn their way continue to fall into the same sort of system.
Not just not being able to see yourself, but then it like translates to real life in ways that like aren't cute, because I feel like I can exist in a world without seeing myself and just like struggle with my identity, and that'd be fine. But if on top of that you're being projected stuff because of what people are seeing in the media, like it like becomes like so much harder.
I'd say what can be difficult is knowing that you aren't going to be represented by people who look like you in a way that you feel actually represents you.
I only know my own like direct experience, but I guess I can say for me, like, not seeing my own stories represented give a weird expectation about how I'm supposed to like go about my day to day. Like, one thing I really think about is like how like white relationship norms were put up, like kind of placed on me, or not even placed on me, but like how that's what I've absorbed for most of my life. Like, in romantic storylines, it's always like two white people falling for each other because they have very similar experiences and like they bond and like you have the romantic connection and whatnot. But like, if you dig deeper, it's like for people of different backgrounds, that relationship is not always like, those relationships don't exist like that.
The people in charge of these narratives don't know what they're doing. They're kind of just like shooting the shit. Yeah, like even people who are trying their best, like they don't know. So they either will sell you the relationship because like, look, it's gay, or they'll sell it for like it like they think they're doing better if they're like, well, it's just a normal relationship, it doesn't matter that they're gay, but like it does.
Minorities tend not to have as much of a voice, and that voice is suppressed in their own representation in the media because someone else is representing them through stereotypes.
People don't care, right? Like people representation comes. They put representation of what sells, and if people aren't aware of the interesting parts of like my culture or my identity, then they won't want it, so then it won't sell, so then it doesn't get made.
I know for me, I've always seen Indian people represented as either awkward or, the stereotypes of engineers, or doctors especially. Those are really big stereotypes that I do see often in Hollywood. And what bothers me is Indian people in Hollywood are rarely portrayed as desirable. They're never, they're never the object of desire in any way. That can be a lot of ways. That can be, physically, that can be in terms of a job, that can be just lots of different ways. It's interesting to see that, and then also have been brought up with a bunch of Bollywood films where you see Indian people doing all of it, They're doing well in jobs or they're not doing well in jobs. They're being attractive or they're not being attractive kind of thing. So that has been confusing for me in understanding how other people see me in America and whether or not they see me as, desirable in different ways. How can I start acting more like the people who are portrayed as desirable, and how can I reconcile that with the color of my skin?
I think at a simple level means that people aren't exposed to storytelling that talks about a range of experiences, and that kind of impacts two sides. You have folks of privileged backgrounds who see a lot of stories about themselves on TV a lot, and then you see a lot of folks who don't see themselves in those characters learning the manners or the behaviors or just the learning about those stories, and simultaneously knowing that that's what we've termed to be the emblematic story of what it means to live in New York or be an up and coming actor, whatever artistic story you want to tell, but then also struggling with I don't have a lot of the same benefits or the same privileges as as those people, how to behave around people, what kind of jokes to make, what kind of stories are acceptable to tell in public. A lot of that has been driven by what Steve Carell and Amy Poehler have told me on TV, people who don't look like me or experience the same things as me.
I don't think a lot of white Americans realize how difficult that can be, and how emotionally taxing that can be.